Yeah, so given this is the last show before the break, just try and get through as much as we can. I'll start with the good news, which is I did upload the video of the last year, and it wasn't complete nonsense upon reflection. But I hope I'll add some clarity to what we're going to move on, but we will revisit. I think some of the things that came up in the last year. Glustra, the Gemara says. So just to contextualize where we're up to, we're working through a series of halachas which the Gemara is suggesting took place before Gezeiras Nechemia was completely unraveled. We saw in Rashi on Amud Aleph, on Kuf Chaf Gimel Amud base, that it's not clear which stage in the unraveling of Nechemia the Gemara suggested is going. It may be going in different stages, but at least before Nechemia is completely unraveled. And what we're going to try and do today is just finish off looking at the suggestions of the Gemara as to the unraveling of Nechemia, and also how the Gemara is matrit. So Glustra Tisnan, Nagash Yesh Barosha Glustra, Rabbi Shuri Mashentum Pesach Zevatoda B'Chaveri B'Shabbos, Rabbi Tafan Mahari Kol Kelim Taltul B'Chotza. So the nega actually, I think is how it's meant to be pronounced. It's I couldn't exactly get the story, but it's a bolt that's used to close doors, and it seems to have a bolt head at the top, a swelling of the wood at the top, which is the whole point of the bolt, to stop it slipping out. And the Gemara understands this to be a keli. That's clearly the understanding of the Gemara, that this is a keli, and nonetheless, Rabbi Yeshua says you can't be metaltal it, you can't move it. All you can do is be shemate it. You can slide it. So there's a number of layers of chiddush in the Gemara that are not obvious at all. The first is this bolt a keli or not? The Gemara is assuming it is a keli, and therefore the only way of explaining why some Muktza rules might apply to it are by assuming that it's Nechemia, it's Gezeiras Kelim, it's in the era when Nechemia wasn't completely unraveled. Secondly, the Gemara is machadish that something that you can't be metaltel, you can still be shomate, you can still slide it and move it. And the third gap in the Gemara is it doesn't explain what the machlokas Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Tafan is, because after all, Rabbi Tafan does say you can be metaltal it. So those are the puzzles in the Gemara. Taking them one by one, Rashi addresses the question of why it's a keli, and Rashi says because it's royu lodach ba boshum, because you can use it as a garlic press. I think I printed, or I put on the WhatsApp group, I think, in addition to this Marsha, a Ritva, who says that Rashi could have chosen another thing that you can do with this bolt, not just as a garlic press, but also to crack nuts as a nut cracker. But he says Rashi chose a garlic press because that's more common. It seems in those days they eat more garlic than nuts. That's what you see in the Gemara, and therefore it's more common to use it as a garlic press than a nut cracker, or perhaps it's better suited for that purpose. Now, why is Rashi saying this? Because this explains why it's a keli. So it comes out something very interesting, and this is really the Mashal Torah, which I put on the last short source sheet, that if it wasn't usable as a garlic press, you wouldn't be allowed to move it on Shabbos because it wouldn't be a keli. And therefore Rashi explains that if it was not useful as a garlic press, then our Gemara wouldn't make any sense, because this would be a bolt, not a keli. A bolt is not a keli, it's mechubal kaka, it's just used as a door bolt. But because it's a garlic press, that makes it into a keli, and therefore the Gemara is saying, why should it be also to be metaltel? It can only be because of Gezeiras Nechemia. In which case, the Mashal points out that we have something a little bit paradoxical over here, which is it gets its Torah's keli from being a garlic press, but then doesn't become a klisha melachto le'issa, which is what a garlic press is, but a klisha melachto leheta, because it can be used as because it's a door bolt, which is a mutter activity. I don't really know how to go further with that than just say, okay. I mean, it's interesting. Haven't quite managed to get my head around. I'm not sure if it's a problem or not. I'm not sure if it's difficult or not. It's definitely interesting. Whether problematic, interesting or not, I don't know. I mean, it's something that needs a bit of pondering. Again, it becomes a keli, in other words, my servant, made for human use because it can be used as a garlic press. But on that basis, it would be a kli melachot le'issa, but it's used the whole time for heter because it's used as a bolt. And if you end up with it getting the best of both worlds, it's a kli melachot le'heter. Heter because it's a door bolt, kli because it's a garlic press. Very, very interesting. The Rashba's explanation would be better. Sorry, the Ritva's explanation would be better, would resolve this issue, but the Ritva doesn't really quite make that point. Doesn't quite make that point either. But he does spell out the Marshal's point. The Finu Melachta Issa, Mashvile Mana, even though it's a Klish Melachta Issa, that makes it into a KD, and therefore, Shur Satin Shi Mutzah Talta, so Gufo Mias, it should be used for its guf, and Kolchke not say so because that's the Tashmish Miyuchad Loi. So he says it has a Tashmish Miyuchad Loi, which is a non-KD use, and it's a KD because of Shum or Agozim, which he doesn't go into. So interesting. Sorry, did I see someone wanting to ask something there? Or? No. Oh, sorry, Adam. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
I'm struggling because if it can be used as a bolt, just as you said, you can adjust the stone to use it as a door stopper. Why then isn't it become a Felician
as a door bolt? Because it's not a KD. Because the door bolt's not a KD. Because it's karka. Yeah. Your question really is right, though. It becomes a KD because it can be used as in a non-connected manner.
Because it's connected to the door. That's one of the door.
Yeah.
But could it not be a bolt for a sort of chest or something that's not connected to the ground? Would that make it a KD?
Yes, it would. Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting point also. Yeah, but that's not what the Gemara is saying as a door, and therefore it's not a KD. Okay, so that's the first aura. The second point that I just want to go into briefly is I put the Chazon Ish at the end of the sources today because he makes a number of interesting points. I don't know if you managed to work through the Chazon Ish or not. I'll summarize what he says and then hope maybe over the break those who have Kirk can work through it because it's quite a technical and complicated one. But basically, this din of Gustra is really a Mishnah in Kelim or Tosefta in Kelim, and around that Tosefta, there's a Mishnah. There's a number of extra details, including a possible linkage to Hilchos Tumah and whether it's a KD with respect to Tumah and so on. And the Chazon Ish is talking about this in the context of what's the machlokas Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Tarfon. Why does Rabbi Shiur say it's Muktza? And is there another explanation floating around that you could say, which is that it's not a KD at all? That's what the Chazon Ish is dealing with. I'm not going to go into that, but very briefly, Al Gemara is assuming it is a KD, and therefore the only explanation of the Issa is Nechemia, and even the answer of the Gemara assumes it is a KD, and it says the only explanation is because of Melachot Shabbat of carrying on Shabbos. You could have given a different answer, which it's not a KD, and avoids it being a KD, and the Chazon Ish sort of gets into that discussion. Part of what the Chazon Ish brings as a Mishnah, and part of what he brings as a Tosefta. The Mishnah has the commentaries in the Mishnah, the Rosh and the Rosh, who discuss whether it's a KD, and there's extra explanation in the Tosefta yeah. The problem is, basically, to summarize the Chazon Ish's points, is that the Rishonim there are arguably explaining the Mishnah out of line with our Sugya. Our Sugya assumes it is a KD, and the Mishnah there, and the context of the Mishnah seems to suggest that really what's going on is whether it isn't a KD. Just to remind you a little bit of Chazara, it really brings us back a daf earlier, in which we had a discussion about the relationship between Tumah and Tara, KD with respect to Tumah and Tara, and KD with respect to Hilchos Shabbos. And seemingly, this would be an example of where the two do not link. Just to remind you again, that with respect to the birth and death of Kelim, in other words, at what point something achieves critical mass of functionality to enter into the realm of Keli, and at what point something begins breaking down and getting ruined and loses functionality to cease to be a Keli, there arguably, Tumah and Shabbos have similar halachas. However, with respect to halachas that are unique to Hilchos Tumah and Tara, such as Pshuta Kliates, material, or Mechubal Karka for that matter, it doesn't seem obvious that Hilchos Tum and Tara and Hilchos Kelim of Shabbos should be directly connected, and this is the point that the Chazon Ish goes into. Okay, so to summarize what we've said so far, point number one, Mashal in combination with the Ritva, that the Gemara is assuming that this is a keli, even though it's mechuber l'karka, it gets its status as a keli because of its other side uses like nut cracking and garlic pressing, and then it becomes a kli shemlachta leheta based upon its use as a bolt. That's point number one. Point number two is there could have been alternative explanations of this halacha, which is that it's not a keli. And that's really why it's Muktza, in which case it defeats the whole point of the Gemara, which says that this is a Kelim and it's because of Nechemia, and there are Rishonim that dabble with that, and the Chazon Ish that draws that to attention, and we get into bigger issues about what degree Tum and Tara and Shabbos are identical. We're not going to go into that, and maybe this also feeds into the Machlokas Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Tarfon, because you could, for example, explain the Machlokas as quite simply the argument about whether it's a Kelim or not. Rabbi Shiur says Shomtar, you can't move it because it's not a Kelim. And Rabbi Tarfon says you can move it because it is a Kelim. You could have read this Mishnah in different ways to how the Gemara is reading it, but our Gemara doesn't go like that. Our Gemara assumes that everyone says it is a keli, and the whole machlokas is around the Gezeira of Nechemia. So that's the second point I want to say. Sorry, Adam, were you wanting to ask? No. Okay. The third point I want to make is
irrespective of the decree of Nechemia, there's no problem because of using the bolt as moving the bolt in and out of the door, because for that purpose it's not keli, it's part of the.
And therefore,
you can open and close the door.
With respect to Hutzah or with respect to Muktza?
With respect to Muktza.
So yes. Yeah.
And that's a more interesting case than in relation to a bolt in a chest, which is not part of the house.
Correct, except there l'chora it should be a keli. I'll tell you where this is relevant. Doors that have Muktza hanging on them. So, for example, many people have a kitchen unit where hanging on the back of the kitchen door is a bin, for example. Have you got the picture? You open the door and there's a bin hanging on the back. Now, the bin has Muktza content in it. Can you open and close the door on Shabbos? Or a drawer, perhaps, which has Muktza in it. So it could be things which are merely swung open and closed, like a door isn't called a tiltal. There may be other answers to your question around tiltal. It's not called tiltal just to swing something. Okay. What's the machlokas Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Tarfon if we go in our Gemara? Our Gemara seems to say that we could explain the machlokas in different directions. That's to do with whether this is a keli or not, but let's push it all to the side. We're going with our Gemara, which learns that this is a keli and it's Gezeiras Nechemia. So why are Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Tarfon arguing? What are they arguing about? Well, Rabbi Shiur says you can be shomit, you can move it, but you can only do shomit. But Rabbi Tarfon says you can even taltal it completely. Why does Rabbi Tarfon say you can even taltal it completely? Well, no, in the maskana of the Gemara, it's an argument about chatzim or raves or not raves. In the havamin of the Gemara, it's Gezeiras Nechemia. It's a Muktza of sorts. So why Rabbi Shiur says Gezeiras Nechemia, you can't move it. Rabbi Tarfon says you can move it. Why? What about Gezeiras Nechemia?
Is there an argument about whether it's a kli shemlachta le'isa or leheter? That one goes like Rashi saying that it is leheter because its primary purpose is.
Rashi says it's leheter in Rabbi Yeshua, who says
so
shomit. So why does Rabbi Tarfon say it's even more than that? And Rashi learns the Mishnah that a bolt is kli shemlachta leheter because it can be used for garlic pressing. Nonetheless, it's also because of Gezeiras Nechemia. So why would Rabbi Tarfon say it's okay? Okay, so a reminder of the need for chazara. Tosfos Kuf Chaf Gimel. On the base says that translates. He reads beautifully into the words of Rabbi Yeshua, of Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon Omer Harihu Kol HaKelim, and he translates that to mean as all kelim which are used tashmishon todeh, and therefore even Gezeiras Nechemia wouldn't apply. So that's how Tosfos explains Rabbi Tarfon, that they're arguing over whether a bolt is a keli and therefore included in Gezeiras Nechemia, or whether it's a super used keli, which therefore isn't included in Gezeiras Nechemia. That's the machlokas. Tosfos, that's how Tosfos learns machlokas. Just reminding you of that.
Given that it's actually primary use, but to say it's patio for cracking them.
No, it may be that its primary use as a bolt is so frequently used that stops it being a keli with respect to.
It's not a keli.
No, it's a super keli. It stops it merely being a kli melachot leheta, and it becomes a keli like a knife and a fork. That's the lomdus of Tosus. Again, no. This is an important point, but you're raising a very important point. There's something here I'm struggling to get my head around. I'm not sure if it's a problem or just lack of imagination. But the Mashar and the Ritva both say it becomes a keli because of its use as shum, and now it becomes a kli melachot leheta because it's a bolt. Maybe it becomes more than a kli melachot leheta because it's a bolt. Maybe it becomes like a knife and a fork that the Gezeiras of Nechemia doesn't apply at all to it. A bolt is used the whole time to open and close doors. But in the same way as it can become a kli melachot leheta because it can be used as a bolt, maybe it becomes a super kli from that, and therefore can be moved the whole time. You're right, Sushay. I don't know that. I also haven't. I'm not sure there's anything I don't understand either. Is it a problem to say that it becomes a kli because it's used as a shum? But if it was used as a shum, it'd be kli melachot issa, but it's leheta because it's used as a bolt. There's something a bit funny in that, right? It gets a kli because it's used for shum, and that becomes a kli melachot because I'm using my kli for shum the whole time for heta. Maybe in that case, if I use the kli melachot issa the whole time as a bowl, then even more so. Right? Imagine I have a phone port where my phone sits, and I use that for my cereal bowl to eat my cornflakes from the whole time. So it's a kli. I'm being miyached a kli melachot issa as a kli melachot leheta, and not just as a kli melachot leheta, as a bowl, as a cereal bowl, which isn't muktza at all, even in Nechemia's world. So something like that is what's going on over here. Very interesting thing. Yes, that's correct. Yes, yeah. It's in the wrong place. That's why I said in Kufchav criminal bet. Yeah.
The Rabbi Zobin would hold up with all of those four.
I don't know. At least this one. That's how we can suggest what Rabbi Zobin's saying. Yeah. It's totally printed in the wrong place. Yeah. Okay. The final point to address is shomta. So why are you allowed to be shomate this keli? Are you allowed to slide this keli along? So the Chazon Ish doesn't think that this is a general rule in Muktza. He thinks, so again, halacha l'maaseh, a very practical question. Are you allowed to slide Muktza? You're not allowed to be metaltal Muktza, take Muktza. Are you allowed to slide Muktza? So the Chazon Ish says, no, you're not allowed to slide Muktza. Gezeiras Nechemia allows you to slide things. You can't extrapolate. So again, Rabbi Yeshua says that let's again just contextualize ourselves. The Gemara understands that this bolt is a keli, and that the reason for the prohibition is Gezeiras Nechemia, and therefore that's why you can't be metaltel the bolt. All you can do is slide it. What is the heter of sliding things? Is it a general heter in Muktza? Says the Chazon Ish, no. You can't extrapolate from the heter of Rabbi Yeshua to slide something with Gezeiras Nechemia to general Muktza. In Gezeiras Nechemia, there's a leniency that you can slide things. Real Muktza, there's no such leniency. That's the Chazon Ish. Rashi understands that shomta really means kilachiyad, right? Tiltul min atzad, machlokas Chazon Ish, if you like, and Rashi, in how to understand the halacha. Is it that shomta sliding something is a kilachiyad, or is it that it's a heter in Gezeiras Nechemia? That's the final piece of the puzzle. The Chazon Ish, incidentally, here we're leaping ahead of ourselves, also asks in the Maskana of the Gemara. In the Maskana of the Gemara that we're talking about, Melachos Hotzah, asks the Chazon Ish again, what's the machlokas? What's the heter of shom? I'm sorry, what's the heter of shomta? Why should we be allowed to shomit it? If the Gemara in the Maskana, again, just to remind ourselves, says that the machlokas Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Tarfon is how to understand the status of the doorway, whether and how Melachos Hotzah applies to it. Ask the Chazon Ish, if there is Hotzah as Rabbi Shiur holds, how does shomta help? And he answers also that shomta is a unique kula in doorways, because doorways is this semi-no man's land. That would be a svara in Muktza. That would be a svara in Muktza.
It doesn't just say shomta, and then you've got to put it on another. Oh, you use it again.
So slowly, 1 second. There's two parallel questions. One is on the Gemara learning now, and one on the Gemara in 4 lines time. On the Gemara learning now, on Rabbi Yeshua, if Rabbi Yeshua holds it's Muktza, how does shomta help? And there's a question in the Gemara later on, which is if Rabbi Yeshua holds this is Hotzah, how does shomta help? So in terms of Hilchos Muktza, one way of understanding is that this is kilach hayad. A second way of understanding is it's unique kula in Hilchos Kelim. You're saying a third svara, which is
that the reason why you can drag it along is because you're going to be using it again as a boat. Because it doesn't just say shunta, it's the Torah.
You're saying like a tzorech gufa type svara. It's because it's for its use.
Hence, it's not. You're not getting into Muktza. I mean, it has a Muktza element to it because it had some alternative use.
No, I think I'm saying what you're saying, but I think I'm saying it with a better formulation. Moving something back for its use is still Muktza. Moving something to use is still Muktza. If I take, let's say, a cleaning Muktza item, my mobile phone, and I want to use it as a door stopper, that's Muktza, even though I'm doing it for use. There's a heter of Tzorech Gufa for Kli Shemelach to the heter. What I think what you're really saying is that this is a heter of Tzorech Gufa. And that's really the Gemara's point. And nonetheless, you see, you can't be metaltal it because of Gezeiras Nechemia.
But the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshua is saying, yes, you can move it.
Yes.
But you can't move it in the usual manner.
That's how Rashi translates the Gemara. Yeah, that the heter of Rabbi Yeshua is tiltul min atad, moving things unusually. That's exactly right. We learned that sugya of tiltul min atad when we learned Muktza in our earlier incarnation, when we were looking at lamps and so on. We saw that tiltul min atad can mean a number of different things. Rashi translates tiltul min atad as somewhat analogous to kilach hayad or shinoi. And therefore, this is really Rashi Lishtoso, that he's understanding this Gemara as really an example of kilach hayad, of moving it with the shinoi. Yeah.
But can I just that maybe we've discussed this, and it's not clear in my head. When Nechemia came along and it started unraveling, and it seems that the unravelings are different types of Muktza formulations rather than Nechemia formulations.
Yeah.
Did they say we're actually completely undoing Nechemia and we're just putting in a new structure of Klish Mlachto Leheter, Klish Mlachto Leiser, and different rules applying to that, and Nechemia is completely dead in the water? Or are we saying that actually for each of those individual things, they said these are now coming out of Nechemia, but there are other things that there's still going to be vestiges of Nechemia?
I don't know is the answer. Some of the vestiges of Nechemia we've discussed explicitly. You're asking something more profound, which is the areas which are explicitly Muktza, are those also vestiges of Nechemia? So just to remind ourselves, we've discussed whether Gezeiras Nechemia still applies nowadays, that you shouldn't move even a Klish Melach to the heter for no reason at all. We saw the Mishnah Berurah says don't move it, and the Avnei Nezer says most other than Loimdim, no one keeps this, and thing. I added a source in Aruch HaShulchan which edges very close to the Avnei Nezer. I didn't see it at the time. I put it on the group now. The Aruch HaShulchan says that no one ever moves things for no reasons. There's always some reason why you're moving things. So what is the Gezeira of Nechemia with Klish Melach to the heter nowadays? What does it mean? There's always a reason why you move things. There's no such thing as no tzorech at all. And he says, all it would us is literally just fiddling with something mindlessly. That's all that would be us, which was the Avnei Nezer also made that point. And then he also, in the brackets there, he says, and I'm not even so sure that there's such clear evidence that Gezeiras Nechemia remains anymore. There's one vestige of Nechemia. Something we didn't speak about so much is whether Nechemia is left over with Muktza Machmas Tzar and Kiss. So not entirely clear the answer to all these questions. The Chazon Ish, either way, is understanding that Gezeiras Nechemia is different to Muktza, and the logic really is with him. Gezeiras Nechemia has nothing to do with Hachana. It's just Kelim shouldn't be moved. Modern day Muktza, modern day as in 2,500 years old Muktza is or 2,000-year-old Muktza is Hachana. Is Hachana. So the Pashtus, there's no link between the two.
One of the English Muktza books describes Nechemia as extending the halachos of Muktza to all Kelim.
It's a difficult use of I don't know evidence of that, and it's difficult use of language because you shouldn't really call Nechemia Muktza, because it's not a haktsar that it's not muchen. I don't know, a keli, a chair or something like that, a klish melach to the heter, but not tashmish toddy. It's difficult to say it's not muchen.
It's such an interchange language in the Gemara between Nechemia and when it's describing Nechemia.
Do we find the Gemara or the Rishonim mixing in Muktza in their language on Nechemia? I'd be very interested to know. There's a genuine question. I haven't seen, there's maybe my ignorance, I haven't seen the Gemara or the Rishonim mixing up the language. It seems to me they understood it's two separate sugyas. In casual talk, you may say Nechemia said all Kelim and Muktza. I'm not sure that's really accurate. It's Gezeiras Kelim. It's a different Gezeiras.
Jeffrey just quoted,
Yeah.
Extending the halachas of Muktza to all Kelim is saying they're not Muktza, but we're using similar or even identical halachic concepts.
But we see in the postscript that was not obvious to them.
No.
So 2 points first of all. Even though I called Muktza modern Muktza, I simply meant post Nechemia. But the origins of Muktza, as I mentioned from the Gemara and Beitzah, predate Nechemia. Really come from. In other words, what we call Muktza is modern in the sense that it's post the unraveling of Nechemia. But there was some level of Muktza already in Torah in terms of Achana. But you see in this Chazon Ish, for example, that the Chazon Ish is open to Svara, that Gezeiras Nechemia would allow Shomtar, and Muktza wouldn't allow Shomtar. That there's types of movements which I don't know of evidence that this claim of this Sefer is good. This may be my ignorance, but I don't know of a raya that's obvious in Nechemia that Nechemia is extending Muktza. On the contrary, it's a different type of Gezeira. Yeah.
There's also on the structure of the Gemara. We originally said he's got 4 prices. Whatever much price. Then Rabbi suggests that is Rabbi. Do we understand the fact that Rabbi is saying, well, not necessarily, and therefore you're left with these 2 possibilities, or the fact that Rabbi said no, this could be after, and there's nothing that then disagrees with you. Now that's actually the Maskana of the Gemara. Is that then how you read the Abnei?
Yes. The all the Rishonim and Achronim take on that Rabbis pushing off of saying that this is in Nechemia is the impact la Halacha, and the reason for this is because it's the Maskana of the Gemara, and the reason for that is because it's a massive doichik to say that a tradition that we inherited from the Tanoim was really a Masorah of statements that are not Halacha l'maisa, and were presumably not Halacha l'maisa in the times of these Tanoim. So they were handing down traditions that were no longer relevant. I mean, the job of why did Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Shiur have this tradition? Why did they pass it on? Presumably because they wanted to teach Halacha l'maisa, not because they wanted to teach Jewish history. So it's a massive doichik to say that.
Can I just pick up on something you said? You said that under Muktza, Shomta wouldn't be allowed, but Nechemia would be. But we also said that Muktza and Beitzah sort of predates Nechemia. So are we saying Nechemia actually nullified all of Muktza and said there's only Nechemia now? Otherwise, why would you be allowed to do Shomta?
I don't know of evidence as to when what we call Muktza came in. Aspects of Muktza already, and maybe what one day we'll do in the chaburah, we'll debate, and we'll see a little bit more about this, existed pre-hand. I don't know of Rishonim or Gemaras that talk about when it was unraveled and when Muktza was created. The aspects of Muktza that existed pre-Nechemia, presumably Nechemia didn't come to be Mekel, he came to be Machmir, so I have no reason to assume that. Okay, we've run out of time, but I would very much like to finish off the sugya. Is anyone up for a Zoom Shiur on next Sunday? So even if we don't meet as a chaburah, we'll do it via the group and we'll see. I'd love to finish the. I can't do Tuesday. I have that baruch. I mean, for good reasons. I have my niece's wedding. I don't think they'd forgive me if I didn't turn up. But otherwise, I can do a recording. But I like it when it's interactive. It's easier for me to speak that way, and it goes better. So, but maybe via the group, we'll just we sort of run out of time and. I don't know is the answer. I'd like also maybe if you feedback to Adam or to myself thoughts around that question. Also, I'd be happy to hear that. Muktza is important, and I'm enjoying it. On the other hand, I'm conscious that we shouldn't stick too long on one topic. I'd be interested to hear feedback on that.
In terms of the location,
I probably can't come next Sunday, and I'm also hoping to get away. I'm not sure whether I'll be ready by Sunday. Yeah, we haven't yet booked. I'm still dreaming about getting away. So yeah. Okay, if I don't see everyone, okay, hopefully we'll see everyone at least live Zoom. So I'm not going to say bye bye to everyone.